As you work on your timeline, there are times when you'll want to look at individual frames, get in real close, and there are times when you'll want to back off and take a look at the whole movie at once. And you can zoom in and out of your timeline using a couple of controls, whether you prefer working with the interface or whether you prefer working with your keyboard. To zoom in or out on your timeline, you'd use the little controls there in the lower right-hand corner of the program. If I press the plus button, I zoom in, I get a closer look. I can go all the way down, like I say, to individual frames if I want, or I can click back here and zoom out, go all the way back out to see my entire movie. There are some nice keyboard shortcuts that will save you having to click way down here in the lower right-hand corner, and these are the up and down key on your keyboard. Up gets you in closer, down gets you farther away. My personal favorite, if you got a roller mouse, as most of us do, is you can just roll across the top of the mouse, and that will zoom in and zoom out on your timeline. Very, very nice. I like that tool a lot. Now, when it comes to playing your timeline, there are player controls down at the bottom of the timeline, and you notice there are also playback controls at the bottom of the preview panel. These are identical. They function exactly the same way. And as you can see, those playback controls will play or pause or stop. To the left is a button here that will take it all the way back to the beginning of your timeline and play back from start. And then over here on the right, we can actually go just one frame at a time. There are keyboard shortcuts for these. You can use the space bar to play your timeline. If you press the space bar again to stop, the playhead will jump back to where you began playback. Watch this.
Of the Bell contract you asked for.
And when I click the space bar the second time, the playhead jumped back to where I began. That's not usually what I want to happen. And the way you pause rather than stop is to press the return key. So in other words, we're going to start playback and then press the enter or the return key, and it will stop in the midst of its playback. Watch.
Of the Bell contract.
That's two different keys, and that kind of confuses me. And I want to show you the playback buttons that I prefer to use, and that is JKL on your keyboard. And I just hover my fingers right over those because L will play my movie, K will pause it right where the playhead is, and J will play it in reverse. And if you double-click on one of these keys, it will play it faster. So I'm going to press L, and then I'm going to double-click on L, and you'll see that it plays it faster. And then I'll press K to pause it.
You asked for, and I grabbed.
There. So the more often you click on the L key or the J key, the faster it's going to go forward or backward. There's also something called a scrubber built into the timeline, and that is in the lower left-hand corner. And I can move the playhead back and forth by dragging it, and the farther I drag it to the right, the faster it'll go, and the farther I drag it to the left, the faster it will go in reverse. A more common way to place the playhead is simply to click on your timeline where you'd like the playhead to jump to. You can also drag on the playhead. You will hear audio as I drag on the playhead. If you don't want to hear audio, you simply hold down the Control and the Alt key. And then when you drag your playhead, you can position it without having to hear the audio. Now, if you want to put the playhead at a specific spot on your timeline, here's a little shortcut from me. Down in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see something that looks like a little parking meter. That is actually the playhead. And if I double-click on those numbers, I can set the playhead to jump to an exact position. So if I want it to go to exactly the 10-second spot in my movie, I would type in 10 and 0 frames. And when I press enter, the playhead jumps to that exact position. That's a very cool shortcut there too. Now your audio and video tracks, your track headers are here on the left. I've got them pretty highly compressed, very, very small, so that I can see my whole movie. You can expand them out, and I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and select the first and the last, so I've got them all. And over here on the right-hand side, there's a plus and minus for raising and lowering the track header sizes. So if I want my video or audio tracks to get bigger, if I got a lot of room on my monitor, I can make them bigger, and I get more access here to the controls that are on each of these track headers now. And in fact, if I go far enough out here, I get a little block where I can actually name my track header, and I can do that. Name this track, for instance, double-click on it, just type in main video. And so I can name each one of my tracks if I wanted here too. If, while I'm previewing my movie, I want to concentrate on just a short segment of my movie, I can create a loop section. Say, I just want to look at this cut right here. I can drag over this to create a loop area, and loop areas serve a number of purposes, but as far as playback goes, you can play back your loop area by selecting this little roundabout loop playback here. It will play that loop area again and again so that you can preview it and make sure it's exactly the cut you want. So you select that and then you press the play button or the L button on your keyboard.
Oh, and you forgot this in the bullpen. I'm going to get back to work. Oh, and you forgot.
So there you go. You can loop it, play it again and again. And a lot of times when you have a lot of video and audio tracks stacked up on each other on your timeline, you want to focus on just one. So say, for instance, I want to only hear the dialogue that's on this particular audio track. I don't want to hear the music. I can solo the track. That means I can set the program up to only play that audio track. And I do that by clicking on this little exclamation point. Now, when I play this track, I won't hear anything else except this track. And I'll do that by pressing the L and then pressing the K to pause. So very nice. That's the difference between that and if I turn off solo, I would hear this. So a lot of times you do want to focus on one individual track of audio, and it works with video also. If you've got several layers of video or several layers of video effects stacked up, picture in picture, and you want to focus just on one, you can solo the video track also. You can also mute a track, and that's what this little button is for, and you can mute your video as well as your audio. In other words, we can turn off that track. So if I don't want to hear the music right now, I can mute that, and now I will hear all of the other audio tracks except for that one. Press L to play and K to pause. And finally, as we're working, you may have the need to add and remove tracks. So I've got tracks with video on them here. If I want to add an additional track, I simply would click to select one of the track headers, usually at the top, right-click, and select the option to insert a video track. Or if I selected an audio track, I would have the option here to insert an audio track. And if I were to click on a section of my timeline that doesn't have either, I can have both options available to me to insert an audio track or insert a video track. But if you don't want to take the time to do the right click and everything, the program will do it for you. If I happen to drag, say, this video clip here to a spot above my timeline, so I'm on the top track of my timeline where there is no track yet, I can just hover it above there, and when I let go, it automatically creates a track for me. So as you build your timeline, there are going to be times when you'll want to micro study it. You want to get in real close and focus on a brief segment only, or only a frame or two, or only one track at a time. And there are other times you want to step back, get a wider look, play your whole movie at once and see how it looks overall. The various playback controls in Vegas are designed to allow you to do either, and to zoom in as close or to zoom back out as far as you want to do, to look at the big picture or to focus on your movie's very precise details just as closely as you need to.